One Saturday night, I was home alone because my parents went to the market. They left around 9 p.m., telling me they would be back in a few hours. I decided to take advantage of my alone time and ordered a pizza. I called my favorite pizza place and placed an order for a large pepperoni pizza. They told me it would be delivered in 30 minutes. While waiting, I watched TV and played some video games. Everything was going fine until I heard a strange noise coming from the kitchen. It sounded like a faint scratching or tapping. At first I thought it was just the house settling, but the noise continued. I muted the TV and listened carefully. The sound was definitely coming from the kitchen. I walked slowly to the kitchen, feeling a bit uneasy. When I reached the doorway, the noise stopped. I looked around, but everything seemed normal. I shrugged it off and went back to the living room. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. It must be the pizza delivery, I thought, feeling relieved. I opened the door and saw a man standing there, holding a pizza box. He was wearing a cap and the uniform of the pizza place, but something about him felt off. His smile was a little too wide, and his eyes didn't seem friendly. "One large pepperoni pizza," he said, holding out the box. I paid him quickly and took the pizza, closing the door behind me. As I walked back to the living room, I heard a loud thud from upstairs. My heart skipped a beat. I knew I was home alone, so what could that noise be? Trying to stay calm, I set the pizza down on the coffee table and listened. The house was silent again. I decided to check upstairs, even though I was scared. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and slowly walked up the stairs. My hands were shaking and my heart was pounding. When I reached the top of the stairs, I noticed that my bedroom door was slightly open. I was sure I had closed it earlier. I pushed the door open with the bat and peeked inside. The room was empty, but something felt wrong. I looked around and saw that my window was open. I never left my window open. I walked over and shut the window, my mind racing with possibilities. Had someone been in the house? As I turned to leave the room, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. I hurried out of the room and rushed back downstairs. I sat on the couch, trying to calm down. I took a deep breath and opened the pizza box, hoping some food would help me relax. But when I looked inside, I froze. Instead of pizza, the box was filled with old, dusty dolls. Their eyes stared up at me, and some were missing limbs. My stomach churned with fear. I slammed the box shut and backed away. My phone buzzed in my pocket, startling me. It was a text message from an unknown number. It read, "Did you enjoy your special delivery?" Panic surged through me. I grabbed my phone and called my parents, but they didn't answer. I didn't know what to do. Then, I heard the scratching noise again, this time from the living room window. I turned slowly, my blood running cold. Outside the window, I saw the delivery man standing in the yard, grinning widely. He lifted a hand and waved slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The front door creaked open, and I heard footsteps coming toward me. At that moment, my parents' car pulled into the driveway. The man's smile disappeared, and he turned and walked away, disappearing into the trees. My parents rushed inside, seeing the fear on my face. I tried to explain what happened, but it sounded too crazy to believe. We called the police, but they didn't find anyone. The only evidence was the pizza box filled with dolls. To this day, I can't explain what happened, but I'll never forget the terror I felt that night. Being home alone has never felt the same since. One of the scariest experiences of my life happened when I was a teenager, home alone for the first time. My parents had taken my younger brother to an event, leaving me by myself on a quiet Sunday. I was enjoying the freedom. Everything was going great, until I decided to visit a friend, even though my parents specifically told me not to leave the house. In my excitement, I forgot to lock the door when I left. When I returned home hours later, I had a terrible gut feeling. The house felt strange, almost as if it was holding its breath. I noticed that the kitchen cabinets were open and things were scattered around. A creeping unease began to settle in. I couldn't believe someone was actually there because it was so quiet. I shouted through the house, but there was no answer. The silence was unnerving. I began to feel a bit better, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid until my phone rang. The caller ID phone. Curious and looking for a distraction, I answered the call. All I heard was deep, heavy breathing. Fear gripped me. It felt like something out of a horror movie. I kept asking, "Who is this?" But the caller hung up. My heart was racing. 2 minutes later again. It was the same heavy breathing, but it sounded angrier this time. Again, the caller hung up without saying a word. Frustration mixed with my fear as I received yet another call from the unknown ID. The breathing started again, slow and menacing. Then I heard a deep, quiet voice whisper, "I'm in the house." My heart stopped, and chills ran down my spine. I tried to act tough, thinking it might be a prank from my friend or brother. The caller hung up, and I forced myself to think logically. Maybe it was just a cruel joke. But then I heard creaking from upstairs, followed by loud, deliberate footsteps. I froze. Every muscle in my body tensed. My mind raced with thoughts. Should I run? Should I hide? The footsteps grew louder, coming down the stairs. Then I heard something drop, a loud thud that jolted me into action. It gave me just enough time to escape as the intruder started sprinting downstairs. Back door and ran into the woods behind our house. My heart pounded in my chest as I fumbled for my phone and called the cops. I explained everything, my voice trembling. They assured me they would be there soon. I stayed hidden, my eyes darting around, half expecting the intruder to appear from the shadows. When the police arrived, I cautiously came out of my hiding spot. They found the front door wide open, just as I had left it. They searched the house thoroughly, but found no one. The kitchen was a mess, with drawers pulled out and items strewn about. My parents arrived shortly after, panic evident on their faces. The police took my statement and reassured us they would patrol the area more frequently. Despite their reassurances, the intruder was never found. The experience left a deep mark on me. For weeks, I couldn't sleep properly. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside made me jump. My parents were furious that I had left the house, but their anger was mixed with relief that I was safe. They installed a new security system and reinforced the locks on all the doors and windows. I learned a hard lesson about responsibility and the importance of following instructions. To this day, I'm extra careful about locking doors and being aware of my surroundings. The memory of that night still haunts me, a reminder of how quickly things can go from normal to terrifying. It was a wild and terrifying experience, but I'm lucky to be able to share this story. Our street is nearly 200 years old and very picturesque, so it attracts many tourists to our city. They come to take photos of the beautiful old houses and charming gardens. Often, I come upstairs from the garden-level kitchen and living room to the street-level first floor to find tourists peering through the windows if I haven't closed the curtains. It's annoying and kind of creepy, but I've gotten used to it. One night, I was getting ready to go to bed. It was late and I was tired from a long day. I walked upstairs, thinking about how much I wanted to crawl into bed and sleep. As I reached the top of the stairs, I noticed something strange. There was a man standing in front of our window. Our windows have heavy wooden interior shutters that we close at night, but I hadn't closed them yet. At first, I thought he was just another curious tourist, so I didn't think much of it. I walked over to the window to close one of the shutters, but when I turned to close the other, I saw him looking directly at me. His face was full of anger, and it stopped me in my tracks. We stared at each other for what felt like a long time. His eyes were cold, and his expression was furious. Then, suddenly, his face twisted into a big, creepy, leering smile. It was the kind of smile that made my skin crawl. He slowly walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the street. I felt a chill run down my spine. I quickly closed the shutters and locked the window. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I kept thinking about the man and his angry, twisted face. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for any strange noises. Every creak of the house made me jump. I got up at least 8 times to check the deadbolt and chain on the front door. I made sure all the windows were locked, and even checked the basement door, just to be safe. The next morning, I felt exhausted. I hadn't slept much, and the events of the previous night were still fresh in my mind. I tried to go about my day as usual, but I couldn't stop thinking about the man. Why had he been so angry? Why did he smile at me like that? As the days passed, I tried to convince myself that it was just a random encounter with a strange tourist. Maybe he had too much to drink, or maybe he was just having a bad day. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. A week later, I was coming home late from work. It was a quiet night, and the street was empty. As I approached my house, I saw something that made my heart race. There, standing in front of my window, was the same man. He was looking into the house, just like before. My heart pounding in my chest. He turned and saw me. This time, his face was expressionless, which somehow felt even more unsettling. I quickly walked past him, trying to act like I didn't notice him. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking as I tried to unlock the door. I rushed inside and locked the door behind me. I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath. I peeked through the peephole, but he was gone. I felt a wave of relief, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of dread. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I kept hearing noises outside, but every time I looked, there was nothing there. The next day, I decided to call the police. I told them about the man and how he had been standing outside my window. They said they would patrol the area more often, but there wasn't much they could do without more information. Since then, about closing the shutters and locking the doors. I still see tourists peeking through the windows, but none of them have ever scared me as much as that man. I hope I never see him again, but I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, watching.